So we're going to resume customizing our everything store. We've made a few changes in the first hour of class. We scaffolded out a products controller with views. We've added the sortable JS library. We've done some currency formatting globally in the product model. We've changed the titles and some of the headings here in our index view. All right, so take a minute. If you just click through the views that we have for products and categories, what else do you think we should modify from the scaffold? So Cynthia, I'm going to ask you because we talked about it, so I'll add it to the list. What's the first customization we might want to modify? Okay, on which view or views? Right, but on which view should we look at? Which view has those text boxes? Well, you said the product description, but which view, which link would I click from the index in order to get there, to the form? Yeah, okay, and how would I get there? How would I load that view? What could I click on to get to that page? Yep, so I'm on product index here. So what would I click on to load the form? Okay, so if I click on edit, so one of the issues is the description box is quite small, right? Both on edit as well as on create. So we'd probably want to modify this, right? So I'm just going to make a list. We want to enlarge product description and create and edit views. Okay, so we will want to do that. Anything else you can see here that we may want to change? Okay, yeah. We'll want to do that. Anything else we should change? Okay, so within the categories themselves, right, when I view a category, right, I won't see the list of products underneath it. Okay. Anything else? I would say visually one small thing I don't like here. Yeah, what should that label say instead? Right, so we've got it both when creating as well as editing. So again, this is something we can actually change. We may be able to change globally. So we'll rename ID. We'll want to customize that. What order do the products appear in here? How is this list, when the page loads, how's it sorted? Yeah, by product ID. So if we add a new product, it just goes to the bottom. So just like we had a default sorting on the categories, we may want a default sorting on the products. By product ID is not really very useful. Or maybe we'll want to sort them first by category and by product. We'll add 2 columns of sorting. Have all the books together, but the books are A to Z. And all the mobile phones and mobile phones are A to Z as well. One other fairly obvious thing we'll want to do here. We have this big blank space. Well, that's okay, because the product names might be long. Here, actually, I better edit this, because what should we do here? Yeah, let's display a thumbnail of the product if there is one. Right now, if we look at the scaffolded code on our product index, it's actually just going to display the name of the file, but it's not actually going to render an image here. It's just going to display a file name. We don't want it to display a file name. We want it to show the actual image. We won't do it through the index, but we'll do that on the edit view. If there's no picture, you click edit, and then there'll be an upload box there. We'll also want to add some more input validation. This isn't readily apparent, but if I go here, if I do this, right, we have a couple fields that are required. That's good. So there's no prices required, but there's nothing preventing me from putting in a value that really doesn't make any sense. Right? We're going to pay people $25 to take this book off our hands. So we should add some validation. So we want to try and do as many of these things as we can. So I think we'll leave the file upload till last. That's probably going to be the most complicated. Doing most of these other things is going to be pretty simple. So let's start with Cynthia's question about how do we make that product description bigger, right? If we're going to ask for a description, single line text box is not very much, right? And it's going to be the same on edit. So let's open up those views. Let's open up products create. And if we scroll down, this will appear on line 29. Because this is a string field, we use this Razor syntax, this editor for method that will automatically generate single line text box, which we don't want in this case. So instead of using editor for, we're just going to use text area for instead. So I'm replacing the editor for with text area for. This will generate it as an HTML text area instead. So I'll hit refresh, and our text box should get bigger. Which it did, kind of, but it's still not very useful. It's taller, but it's actually narrower. So it's not that much better. So what we want to do is, let's see how wide our text boxes are. Well, actually, we can define a custom style for all text areas. we have our own CSS file, so we can override the width. So if I go to my content folder in here, for any of you who did any custom CSS on your assignment, right? If we go to site.css, this is a default style sheet Visual Studio gives us. We can make any changes we want here. So what I'm going to do, so notice by default, it sets inputs and select lists and text areas to have a max width of 280. I don't want to restrict. I want my text areas to be wider. So I'm going to take the text area and comma out. So let's say we'll make our text areas. Let's just make them, we'll try 400 pixels and we'll see how it looks. So I'm applying this style globally to any text area in the site. It's going to be 400 pixels wide. I'm not sure if that's going to be good enough. We'll refresh the page and see how it looks. We may have to adjust it. Right? Lots of trial and error with CSS. Try a style, see if it's good. If not, adjust it until we're happy. So we should keep the same height. Yeah, that's maybe better. Cynthia, are you happy with that? Is that big enough? Okay. Right. So I took text area out of here and I redefined it, and I'm setting all my text areas to be 400 pixels. So now that change we made in the create view, we have to make that same change in the edit view. Our create form looks good. We now have a text area. But if I edit, we still have that single line text box. So the same, we'll need to find that same line in our edit. Close some of these up. So I'll open up my products edit, and now we find it here on line 31. So I'm going to change editor for, change the word editor to text area. And if we refresh that view, we should have our 400 pixel wide text area there as well. Okay. We don't really want the description here because those descriptions may be really large. So better we don't include them in our table and make the table too big and hard to read. We just want one line per product. Okay. We'll turn that one green. We've done that one. The photo uploads, we'll leave those. We'll deal with this one next because it's pretty straightforward. We have those two drop downs that say, with labels that say category ID on our create and on our edit views. These we're actually going to change directly in the views. Notice right here, so I'm in my edit view, we just changed. We added the text area on line 31. If we come down here, these values are actually hard-coded in right here. Notice we have a label for category ID. This is the text on the label in quotes. This value in red here on line 53. And your line number will be exactly the same as mine because this page was all scaffolded. We haven't added or deleted any lines. So all we have to do here on line 53 is take out the two characters that say ID in that label. So I'll just delete those. And now our label will say category instead of category ID. Let's go to edit. Yes and no. In some cases, yes. And I'll show you that. But the way the scaffolding works is any of the labels that are beside primary foreign key fields, they've actually hard-coded the text right into the view. I don't know why. If we want to change any of the other labels, yes, we can do that globally, and we'll do that in a minute. Okay. So we're going to change this one, and we'll want to make the same change on the category view. There's going to be a label that's hard-coded with the text category ID. We'll just remove ID from that label. And then we'll look at how would we change one globally. So on our create view, it's on line 51. Again, inside of the quotes in red text, we've got category ID, that value is being hard-coded onto the label. Again, this is only because this is a foreign key field. Take out ID here and go back and create. Right, so that we've taken out that word ID. So let's look at if we want to change a label for any of the other fields that are not foreign key fields, how could we do it globally? So let's say we want to give one of these a friendlier name. Anybody want to make a suggestion about one of these fields we might change? And these are pretty descriptive names, but let's just look at how would we do it. So we're not changing the database. We just want to basically give one of these properties an alias. So we could pick any one of them. Let's say we want the photo instead to say image. Pretty much the same thing. This we could change globally in our model. So if we go back to our product model that we had open earlier, right, where we formatted the currency, in here we could set up a display name for any property, and that will be global. So under photo, if we set up display name equals image, we'll rename the text on that label on all of the views. Instead of saying photo everywhere, it's going to say image for that property. So I'm just adding this line of code in blue. Doesn't matter if it goes before or after the string length. The order of these annotations is not important. So if we build all of our views, wherever it has that label that says photo, on index, on create, on edit, on details, delete every one of them, we're not going to see the label that says photo anymore. All of those are now going to say image. Make sure that you build, and we should see this label is replaced on all 5 of our views, as well as any future views that display a label with that name. So it's generally going to be much more efficient to set these things in our models rather than setting them on every individual view. It's more work. So notice this now says image. On create, our label says image. On all of our views, they all say image. The only reason the category ID we had to change in the view is because the labels generated Rated differently for foreign key fields. The label text is hard-coded into each view. So we'll mark that one as done. We won't be able to show the product thumbnails until we can upload the photos. Let's deal with this one next, right? We need to fix that problem that allowed me to set a product price as negative $25. Shouldn't be allowed to do that. So where would we go? Would we do that validation in the model, in the view, or in the controller? We've already seen some validation. We could do it in the controller. Probably more efficient to do it somewhere else. Yeah, we want to do it in the model because then it's going to be global for any method or any view that accesses this model. It'll have to follow those validation rules. Right? And we can see some of the validations are already here, like the length of the strings and which fields are required. So in here, we can set up a range. We can set up a minimum allowed value and a maximum allowed value for any kind of numeric field. So we'll use this range annotation. We have to specify a minimum and a maximum. So what is the lowest price? Okay, right? Can't sell anything below 1 cent. What about a maximum? What's the most expensive thing we might sell in this store? Well, we're selling vehicles. 30,000's maybe not high enough. 100,000? Okay, let's say at least 100,000. So there's our min and there's our max allowed ranges. So let's build, and now I'll try and save that product again. I'll do an edit to that product that already currently has a value of negative 25. This validation rule should now take effect when we try and do a save. So I'll go back to this product. I'll go to edit it. And if our validation in our model works, I should not be allowed to save this product without changing the price. And then we'll try and add a product, and that validation should apply in either case, because this validation rule is not tied to a particular view or a particular method in the controller. It's global. Okay, so I'm just going to click save. It automatically gives us this error message, which we can customize. So that range method we use, there's 2 required parameters, a min and a max. There's an optional 3rd parameter, which is an error message. So now I can no longer save changes unless I have a value in the acceptable range. And this will be true when editing, but because the create uses the same model, so that validation rule applies to any method that uses the model. Will not allow me to enter a negative number and save to the database. So we can validate in our controllers, but it's more efficient to validate within the model classes themselves. And if you add rules in your database, Entity Framework automatically applies those rules to the model. That's why it says that our name is required, because in the database script, we said the name can't be null. So it will automatically generate a required attribute in our model. Okay, so we've done that. Let's add our sorting. So in our product index, well, actually, first we maybe should add a couple products from other categories. Let's add a few other products that aren't books. And then we'll want our list to sort first by category and then by the name of the product. What am I wearing? I bought this one. It's a long time ago. I think I paid the low price of, I don't know, I think it was about $60. I didn't watch it. You can create any data you like. Just make sure you create something that is not a book. Okay, so okay, which BMW? Which one? Okay. Okay. How much are we paying? How much are we selling this for? Okay. Okay. So we want to resort this list. I'll add one more book because right now that'll put the book at the bottom. I'll create another book. Really recommend the movie and the book if you haven't seen it. But a guy who can't keep a girlfriend, so he goes to visit all of his ex-girlfriends to find out why he was a lousy boyfriend. And that's funny. He's a record shop owner and he's obsessed with old music. Okay, so I'll add that as a book. So it's down at the bottom. Okay. So notice every time we add a new product, it just shows up down here. So where are we going to go so that this list, by default, when a page first loads, it's sorted first by book, by category, and then by product name? Where would we do it? In the model, the view, or the controller? Right, we're going to do it in the controller, in the index method. Okay, so let's open up our product controller. Actually, mine's already open. So right now, this just returns a list that's ordered from the lowest product ID to the highest. So first, let's order it by the category. So how would we do this? We'll call that order by. Well, we're going to make, we have to make our variable that references the products. So I'm going to call it P. And now what are we ordering by? Product, category. Now keep in mind, category is an object. It's not an individual field. Category has multiple fields. It's got an ID and a name. So we actually need category name. You can't order based on a group of objects. You can order based on a property that those objects share. So if we do this, this should show us first all the books, then the vehicles, then the watches. We'll do it one at a time. We'll see if this works. And if this works, we'll then add that second column. Then within a category, we want it alphabetically by the name of the product. So my last product, product ID 1008, it should move up in this list. Right, and vehicles should also be moved ahead of watches. So now we have all our books first, vehicles, watches. And we can still sort here. Right? Our sorting still works. However, it would be better if we then automatically sort by our second column. First categories, then within a category by the name of the product. So we're going to add a second. We're going to order by the category name. And we use then by. First by this, then by something else. We can only use one order by in a single query, but we can use an unlimited number of then bys. It can be then by this, then by this, then by this, then by this. So first by the category name, and then by the product name afterwards. So we'll just add this in. And then if you refresh, we should have the sorting we want. A to Z by category and A to Z by product within a category. So a long way down should become the first product that shows up. And high fidelity should get moved to the second row of our list. So again, this is what we've added. So now we've got A to Z by category and A to Z within the categories. Sorry, how do we make the create? Okay, so here's create. Hang on, let me open them both up. Sorry, I'm not quite sure I understand. Yep. Yes. Yep. But you don't want to show them the list. Okay, in that case, well, but how are they going to edit if they can't see the list? How do they know what they're editing? Okay, so then what would they do to see the list? Okay, so so where would this link go? Or this wouldn't go anywhere. There would just be Yes, you can modify this however you want. So if you don't want to show the list on this page, if you just wanted to show HTML static content with instructions, you could. You'd have to go into the index view and delete the HTML table that's here. Okay, you would have to remove, if you don't want to show this, you'd have to go into products and index, right? So we have this loop with a table. You'd have to get rid of all of this and replace it with whatever you wanted to be on that page instead. But the scaffold, this is the structure it builds. The index is always a list with the create, link, and edit and delete. We don't have to keep those. So you can make whatever changes you want to make for your application. Okay, so we've done our sorting. Okay, let's deal with this one. We want to show, when we click on a category, when we go to edit the category, we want to show the products underneath it. Actually, maybe we don't want it on the edit. Maybe we'll put it on the details view. When we're looking at a category, we can see the products that belong to it. So right now, if I go to categories, oh, we got rid of our link. Okay, put my details link back here. So we'll go to categories, index. I'm going to copy my edit link in between. This was here originally. I think I removed it last week. I'm going to put it back. So my link will say details. It will link to our details view that we scaffolded. So just adding this line. Exactly the same as the other two. I've just replaced edit or delete with the word details. So I can click any category. Shows me the details. All it's really showing me is the name of the category. We have related products, but we don't see them here. Now, here's one of the best things about using .NET MVC. We want to show child data here, right? The book is the parent, and then there's related products. We're writing this in some other application. We need to write a query that joins the products to the categories in order to fetch this. Let's go look at our category details method for a minute. In our categories controller, here's a details method. So it takes in an ID. It calls find. So find is based on writing a query based on a primary key. And it returns back a single category. That's why our category name shows up here. Because the product model is related to the category model based on a foreign key, when we select a category, we automatically have access to all the child data. We don't have to do anything extra to get that data. So if we want to show the list of products here, we just need to add a list to our view. We don't have to change any of the C# code to make this work. So we'll open our categories details. So this page receives one category object. This category actually is going to include list of products. So I'll put on a heading here. But we'll start here with just name and price. Notice when I reference the model and hit dot, it already recognizes the child data because every category can have products attached to it. So if we just create a table and loop through, we can display product name, the product price. And the price should automatically be formatted as currency because we set that in the product model. So we haven't had to write any extra code to have access to this related child data. It's already included when we query and select the category. So I don't even need to rebuild. I can just refresh this view and we should get a list of products here. Add my classes as well. Portable. And notice we only get the related products. We don't see the car, we don't see the watch. Now, I'm not sure why our formatting's not showing up. Our price is showing up, it's not formatted as currency. So we could actually add some currency formatting directly in this view. We can just use a string format. If we format the price as currency this way, it should show us the dollar sign in front of it. So if I want to go and look at a different category, I only get the related products. So whenever we're querying an object in .NET MVC, if that object has related child data, we automatically have access to that child data. It comes along when we're querying something. So if we have a student object and we're looking up a student and that student has grades in the grades table, we're automatically going to get all of their grade data along with their student record. So we can show data from related tables really easily. We haven't had to join anything. We haven't had to change any of the backend code to do this. So I've basically added from line 25 down to line 39. We didn't change anything else. We just added this code. Yes. So the last thing we want to do is be able to upload a photo and then have that photo be displayed. We want to display it as a thumbnail on the index view. And when we're editing, we also want to show the image as well as maybe give somebody a chance to replace that image if they want to. So maybe we'll add it first to the edit and get it working on edit, and then we can add it to create. We're going to have to write similar code on create. So we'll go to our product edit. And down here on line 47, we have an editor for the photo. This just gives us a text box. We don't want a text box. We want a file upload box here instead. So I'm going to delete what's on line 47 entirely. And I'll also get rid of this validation message. And now line 47 just looks like this, just a blank line. I'm going to use an input type equals file. It's very important we name it with the same name as our column name it will be mapped to. So if the column name is photo, the upload box needs to be called photo, and I'll also give it an ID. Took out the editor for and the validation that were in that section. Replaced it with a very simple HTML file upload control. If you go and edit a product now, we should see a little browse button instead of a text box in that section on the form. It looked something like this instead. So our text box is gone and we have a browse button that will open a file dialog box. We have to do one other thing on this page before we can process in the controller the upload. Anytime we put a file upload box in an HTML form, we have to do something with the form tag. Otherwise, our upload doesn't actually do anything. You would have done this in your PHP course. You probably did file uploads in that class at some point. So what do we have to add to our form in order that it can process an upload? Good guess. No. Here, let me just go and create an item here. Let's look on Blackboard. So here's a form. Blackboard gives me a text box and a text area. Yes, you're getting warm, Emilio. Let's look at the form tag here. Let's make this bigger. We already have that. You're looking at what we need. What attribute do we need to add to our form if that form's going to process file uploads? No, we don't need an ID. We need this. What the heck is this? What does it do? What does it mean? ENC type. It's not encrypt. Good guess. So, close. Brody? Right, it's an encoding type. Any form that's going to allow file uploads needs the encoding type attribute, and the value should set to be multi-part form data. What does this actually do? What does it mean? And why do we need it in order to be able to upload a file through the browser? Google is your friend. What does that attribute mean? Any form that doesn't upload will need this. Anybody find the answer quickly? Yep, that's absolutely true. It has to be included to do a file upload. So how does this work? If you upload something, you upload a picture to Instagram from your device, how does that file actually get copied from your machine or your device to the web server? How does that work? It's not using FTP, right? You don't have a username and password on an FTP server. You're doing it through a browser. So how does that actually work? Right. It'll take your original file. Maybe that file is a Word document you're uploading to Blackboard. Maybe it's an image you're uploading to Facebook. Takes the original file and it converts it to binary. It does a conversion to ones and zeros. The ones and zeros get passed to the server, and then the file gets reassembled into its original format. If it was a JPEG on your machine, it's a JPEG on the server. If it was a PDF on your machine, it's a PDF on the server. This conversion can't happen without that attribute. If you don't have this attribute in your form tag, any files that are included, they just get ignored. It doesn't throw an error. It's like you never clicked browse and picked any file at all. So that binary conversion will not happen without that attribute. So we need to add it to our form. Otherwise, our file upload just goes off and is canceled. Doesn't happen. So we need to go up to the top where our form gets created. In our begin form, notice there's no parameters here. So this just does a basic form where the method is automatically post and the action is automatically itself, the same URL. We're going to need to use a different overload here, and we're going to need to add the encoding type or our upload won't work. I'll make sure I get the syntax right. Okay, so in here, first thing we're going to do is list what method are we posting to. It's posting to itself. Run it. We're in the products controller, so we're posting to the edit method of the products controller. Now it wants the form method, which will be form method post. This is where we have to add that attribute for the encoding type. Multi-part slash form dash data. So inside the begin form method, we've added everything that's here in blue. The first three things were here already by default. But because we want to add this attribute, we have to explicitly add those first three parameters as well. So I'll save that, and we'll look at the difference at runtime this makes. Line 47. So here's our form right now. I'll just view the source. I haven't refreshed it. So here's our form tag originally. Action goes to products, edit with the ID, and method is post. There's nothing else here. Now that we've added this, if I refresh, we should have that encoding type equals multi-part form data included in our form tag. So we need to do this. That'll add it to our form tag, so now we can process a file upload. Without that, once we get it working, I'll take it out and you'll see what happens. The file, if we check for file uploads, the count is going to be 0 or that object will be null without that property. Okay, so that's the front end. There's two paces on the front end. Add the input type file equals file. Add the encoding type as multi-part form data to our form. Now we can write the code in the controller that says when the form is posted to the server, check for any files that are uploaded, and if we find one, we want to save it. Okay. So now we need to go to our product controller, and we want to go to the edit method. Notice there are two edit methods. The first one takes an ID parameter. The second one takes a product parameter. Why do you suppose we have these two different edit methods? What's the purpose of this one and what's the purpose of that one? Well, let's look at them. Here's the one that takes an ID parameter. Here's the one that takes a product parameter. So why are there two different methods called edit? What's happening here? When does this method get called? Yep, it is for editing a product. So here's the second version. Why do we have two methods? Brody? Exactly. This is the get version that loads the form and populates it with the current product data. So the get gets called when I go to my product list and I click edit, right? It passes an ID. So that's running the get version of this. When I change something, that's running the post that marks my product as modified, saves the changes to the database, and then it goes to what method? Yeah, it goes back to index. We take them back to the list once the save is done. So we're not concerned about the get method. The get method works fine. We want to process the file upload here. So if we've uploaded a file, where in this method should we write the code for saving that file upload? Let's look at what it's doing. It's checking if any validation errors occurred. If not, we're saying this object has been changed, we're saving it to the database, and then we're taking the user back to the list of products. So somewhere in here, we need to add a block of code to check if a file has been uploaded, and if it's been uploaded, we want to save that file. So where in here should we do this? Should we save the image as the very first thing? Probably not. Why not? What's happening here? Right, it's checking validation. So does it make any sense to save the file if some of the data in the product isn't valid? Probably not. Okay. Well, we can't do it in the return, but should we do it before or after the return? Why do we need to do it before the return? Well, once the return happens, nothing else is going to happen. So once we redirect it, once we return a redirect, we can't really do anything else here, right? Our execution stops. So once we save to the database, if we can save the product change successfully, then we want to also save files. In fact, actually, I would suggest we want to do it before we save to the database, because we need to check if there's a file. We need to grab the name of the file, and we want to include that in the database. If we save first to the database, we don't know what the name of the image is yet. We actually want to grab the image name first, so we can include that image name in the database if there is one. So I'm going to put this inside of our if it's valid. We're going to check using the request object. The HTTP request has a files collection. That means any files that were included in the request. If this is not null, it means there was at least one file included in the request. No, it's always going to be file 0 because we only have one. We're only allowing the user to give us one file. We don't have multiple upload boxes. They can't select multiple files here. Our file name isn't null. File content length greater than 0. That means we got a file included. The user browsed and they picked something. So we use this map path. In order to save a file, we can't use a virtual path. We need a fully qualified file path starting with the drive letter. So we could hard code the path. The problem is the path on our local machine is different from the path on the server. So if we use server.mappath, it gives us the physical file path on whatever machine is running. So we're going to map the path to content. Inside of content, we're going to create an images folder. We don't have that yet. We'll create it. We'll store all the images in there. So this is the destination for the file. Let's make a copy of that file in content images. And we will keep the original name of the file. Right now, we won't worry about overwriting a file with the same name. That is the default behavior. That's what would happen. So this save as method, that actually saves the file to our file system. The other thing we need to do here is we want to grab this file name and set it equal to the photo field, right? We want to save the name of the file to the database. We'll take our product and set our photo equal to file name. We upload a file called abc.jpg. We want to save abc.jpg. We want to save that string to the database. So we know the name of the photo for that product. We're not saving the file itself in the database. We're just saving the file itself on the server. And we're storing the name of the file in the database. That's more efficient. Storing files in the database makes our databases get really big and really slow and really expensive really quickly. Much better, just store the names that are paths to the files. Okay, so we can build. And now we need to create this content images folder. We don't have it. So inside of content, I'm just going to add a new folder here called images. So if I created in Visual Studio, it's part of the solution automatically. If I created this folder in Windows, it wouldn't be included unless I manually went to that folder and said include in project. So let's try this out now. I build. I'll go and maybe grab an image. You can look online. I'll just go here because I can put credit to the images in here. Let's see. I'm going to go and grab this image. I'm going to try. So I'll just save this image to my desktop. Follow it a long way down. I'm going to see if I can upload it. I'm going to go and edit this. And browse. Go to my desktop. Find my image and so it saved the file name to the database. That's good. Now we don't really want to show the name. We want to show the image. But then we also want to check, well, does this actually exist? So if I just refresh here, here's my image, right? It got uploaded. It's not included in the project though. So if I push to Azure, that image won't show up. So I'll just include it. So now on my index, instead of just displaying the name of the photo, I'm going to check and say, if we have a photo, render it in an IMG tag, show a little thumbnail of the product. So I'll just take this out. Here we'll say if photo isn't null. Whatever the photo name is in the database, that's the source of our image tag. So our image, each image will be dynamic. Every product will show a different image. Let's see if this works. I'll put the code back up in a second. Oh, it didn't save my changes. Okay, working. We may want to do a little constraining here. So my product images, they're probably all going to be different widths, but maybe I at least want to make them all the same height. So all my rows are the same height. So let's do this. I'll give it a class. Actually, well, Bootstrap already has a thumbnail class. We could try that, see how that comes out. Otherwise, I could just define my own little class for a thumbnail. That class is no good. Okay. I'll call it thumb, and I'll create a class. I'll make a thumb class where the height is 75 pixels. I will keep all of my rows the same height. Sorry? I could override that, but I may want to use that class for bigger things later. So typically, you can, but typically I'll just create a different class. So if I add one more product, I'll go and grab the high fidelity book cover as well and try and add that one. 75 pixels. You could set it to anything you like. Well, I'll just grab this image as well. Oops. Well, save that one. And I'll see how this looks with a couple of pictures on. So I'll browse. And add the product image here. At least they're the same height. Sure, just add, just add a class to that column and add the class to Bootstrap. Yeah, you can format it however you like. And again, the scaffold is a starting point. You don't have to stick with how it looks, right? You could even take out the edit links if you want and make these links. So you actually just click on the name of the product to edit it. That would work too. We could make this a link that would show you the full image. Right? You're not limited. It's just a starting point. Okay, so we did manage to upload. Well, we sort of did this one. I'll make this one yellow because we added it to the edit. When we're creating a product, we'd have to do the same thing. We need the encoding type and the input type equals file, and we need to add the exact same code to our create. We can maybe add that next week quickly, okay? And our thumbnails, we're good here, or managed to do that. Okay, I will push all of today's code up to GitHub. Question? We do have to. Okay, so the file is you tried to upload is too large. There is a default buffer on the server. You can override it in the web.config file. There's a request, HTTP request. There's a max length node you can set where you can increase the file size. So that's how you would do it.